What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. I know it's been a while, but we're back at it. Today we're going to install a Hypercore DAW turbo dynamic auto work, and we're going to be installing it in a 540. I've had a lot of questions about this turbo, mainly for people that want to just do daily driving and don't want that extra horsepower. This spools up really good, I've heard, so we're going to test it out and see how it works. Now with this turbo, it's fairly simple and a little different. It's not full frame, it's just a core, so you're going to have to put this with the frame that's already on the car and just put back everything on the car. And today we'll show you how to get that done. Every time you do a turbo install, I highly recommend you get the turbo kit and the gasket, and also the gasket for the downpipe so there's no leaks at all. With this install, we're going to do it step by step. I don't want to rush. I want to actually take my time and show you guys exactly how to remove every nut and every bolt so everything can go very smoothly and installation can be a breeze. Luckily for the 540, we have so much space and it's not like the 3 Series or the 2 Series. We got plenty of space to work. For this job, I'm going to use my lift at the shop. Now keep in mind, I've done this turbo install so many times in my house, in the garage, on the floor. It is very doable and it's straightforward, just like you're about to see. The first thing you got to do is remove the exhaust to the downpipe. So beginning at the front of the car, towards the end where the resonator is, you have a cross plate right here. It's held on by Torx 10 screws. Remove them. It won't drop yet because on the ends you have 2 8mm screws that you got to remove. And this plate will come right off. Right where the downpipe connects to the exhaust, you have 2 13mm nuts. One right here and one right over here. Remove them. And you'll see the exhaust drop down just a little bit. The only thing holding up the exhaust now are 4 13mm nuts and the connection to the downpipe itself. Extension, and remove those 2 13mm nuts. Hopefully you can see where I'm pointing here. See them? Just the exhaust hanger. You have an exhaust flap connector. Unplug that so it doesn't get caught when you're pulling it down. Now get the jack and support the muffler so when you remove those last 2 13mm nuts, it doesn't just hit the ground. Okay? You'll see the exhaust tips touch up a little bit. Here's that last 13mm nut. Now the muffler, don't drop it down all the way. Just slowly set it down and you'll see the exhaust start to separate from the car. Once you're about halfway from the car and the ground, grab either side of the exhaust and just simply pull it off of the downpipe. And there's your exhaust. Now we can remove the downpipe. Remove this crossbar, 16mm, Torx 14. Unplug your mass airflow sensor. I'm assuming since you're installing a turbo, you have an aftermarket intake. I'll link a video up above where you can install your intake pipe, so that gives you the ability to install an aftermarket intake and it gets rid of that ugly silencer right here. Remove your intake. This box, just grab and pull up. Held on by rubber grommets on the bottom. Your intake pipe is held on by this clip. Now to make it easier for you, I'm going to show you a charge pipe that I took off a car a while ago. You want to take your pick tool, reach around this hole right here and pull up as hard as you can. So that clip will release from the corners and that intake pipe and the charge pipe will release when you do it. Once you get a hold of it, pull it out of place. Now we can unplug the wastegate. White connector here. Push it out. And just unplug the wastegate. You got this connector here for the PCV hose, same deal, and unplug it. All these cables are held on by this PCV. You could just get it out of the way, just like that. The PCV hose, squeeze together. There you go. Sometimes if it's too stuck on there, you could just use a flathead carefully and you can pull it out of place. And now you only have one more connection, which is for the evap line, right here on the intake pipe. So the same deal with this. You squeeze the 2 tops and pull out. Same idea here. Pops right out, and the intake pipe should just come out to play. Luckily, no one's touched the charge pipe on this car, so I could show you that black lock clip. This guy, you could just take some pliers, grab onto it. There you go. Just pull up. Same story with the charge pipe. You reach your pick tool behind that clip, and you pull. Once you have it free, there you go. Just please don't lose these 2. We're going to need to reuse them for the downpipe, for the charge pipe and the intake pipe. Remove this crossbar, same thing applies. Unplug these 2 connectors that are going into the charge pipe. Those 2 cables to the side. You have 3 T30 screws that hold the charge pipe to the throttle body. Just go ahead and remove them evenly. And the bottom one, you'll just have to look underneath and you'll see it. I always start with the bottom one. This is the hardest one to get to, and once you get it out, top 2 is very easy. You can grab onto the downpipe. Pop it off the throttle body, come by the turbo, wiggle it off, Here's your charge pipe. Very simple. If you guys are looking to get more power, upgrade this. They haven't been known to crack or anything, but yeah, better sound. It'd be the perfect time to get a gasket for the throttle body. This seems to be in very good condition still, but I've seen ones doing this job that are very cracked and messed up, so this would be the perfect time. Unplug both O2 sensors. There's two 13mm nuts holding in the downpipe to its bracket. Now for better explanation, let me show you this downpipe that I have here on the ground. The two 13mm screws are gonna sit right here, so just reach behind the second cat sensor and you'll find those two 13mm screws. Remove them first. Here's the first one. And here's the second. The downpipe and the turbo are held on by this V-band clamp right here. It's also held on by a 13mm screw. Go ahead and loosen it. See? You start to see that band start to get loose, and this is that nut I was talking about. Once it's loose, just push it over the downpipe. Reach around and remove it from the bracket. Just push with your thumb and the downpipe will just come right out. And then push it towards the bottom of the car. Come from underneath, and there's your downpipe. This is the perfect opportunity to change the gasket. They send you one with the kit if you order it, so there's no leaks. I've already installed the catless downpipe on this car, so we don't need to replace it. This heat shield's held on by 5 13mm bolts. Just remove them. Long, so make sure you don't drop them when you're releasing them. There you go. I highly recommend you remove the 3 pieces that are undercarriage of the car. This way you can access the turbo bracket bolt, which is held on by a T40 screw right here. Just be very careful not to strip the screw. I'm telling you from my own mistakes. So just remove that screw, and there you go. Strip, teeth are still good, everything is fine. Just take your time and this will come out. Now since we're removing oil return and feed lines to the turbo, we have to drain the oil or it's gonna be just a mess up there, so it's better to just do an oil change. We're also gonna remove the coolant return and feed lines, so there's gonna be coolant everywhere. You're gonna need oil and coolant. This is also a good time to change your spark plugs as well. Everything a fresh start, you know? Once the oil drains, you have 2 T30 screws right here. This is for your coolant and oil return lines. So just go ahead and remove that T30 right here, and the one right above it right there to these 2 lines. And just be very careful with these T30. Crack the first one and the second one. Now they're both loose. And here's the first screw, not very long. Once those screws come out, go ahead and just gently wiggle back and forth as you're pulling off of the block. And you'll start to see it right here. See it separating. I don't know if you can see it on camera, but those lines are starting to separate from the block. There you go. Some oil will drip out. Just put a rag down here so you don't have a mess. So that's the first line out. Now you get the one on top of it. Just wiggle and pull out. And there's your coolant line. Yeah, this is going to be a messy job, so just make sure you have things at the bottom to hold all this liquid. Pop open the coolant tank. You let more flow. Go to those lines. Behind the turbo, you have another line right here. The connection is hidden behind this. So just go ahead and push this heat shield back, and you see this little clip. This is for your oil feed line. You'll make the right tool for this little clip right here, but I don't have one, so you see, just grip it, push it back. So just, see that? And separate those two. Now you have that T30 nut right here, or screw. Remove that so this line can be free, and it'll come out with the turbo as one. So everything we needed to do from underneath the car is basically done. The only thing holding on to the turbo to the block is these little 10mm screws right here. They come brand new with the kit. When you're unlocking these, sometimes the stud will come out with the screw. It's okay. You can just put it back in there and retighten it, and that nut will come out. There's about 6. Start with the one from the very back. It'll make your life easier. Here's the first one. Remove this plate. There's just one line underneath the turbo, and this is your oil return line. Just held on by a T30 as well, like the rest of these little screws. Remove that from the block. Now the turbo should be completely for free. The turbo is now completely free from the block. There's no screws and no lines holding the turbo to the engine. So you want to get something pretty sturdy, long, put it between those 2 cylinders and just kind of wiggle it in place. There you go. The turbo is separated from the block. Now just pull this guy right out of the car. Here's your turbo. This is the line I wanted to show you guys earlier. So just go ahead to 13mm, pop it out of the block, and you got these 2 hoses and this one towards the back. That's pretty much it to remove the turbo from a B58. Now since this isn't a full frame turbo and it's just a Hypercore, we have to remove the wastegate, pull it out, put these lines onto the new Hypercore turbo, and then reinstall everything. It's very simple. First start with the C-clip that holds the wastegate arm. So flathead, and just Do not lose this C-clip. Next, we remove the wastegate, and it's held on by 4 T20 screws. Go ahead and remove them. Once those screws are out, the wastegate will come right out. Go ahead and set it to the side for now. Don't adjust anything, just leave it exactly how it is and put it to the side for now. Next, we're going to remove the 3 lines. They're all held in by T30 screws. And there's one directly underneath the turbo. If these lines don't want to come out, a little bit of WD-40 will help you out a lot. Trust and believe. So just go ahead and wiggle it out of the way, and these lines will start to come right out. This would be the perfect time to just get brand new lines, new O-rings, just order directly from BMW so you can skip this part completely. Just install the new lines and get it over with. And we have one more down here. So all in total you have 4 lines. Turbo is basically naked now. So all we have to do is remove that T30 right there, and that core will come right out. The only thing holding the core to the frame is this T30 screw and nut. The nut is 10 millimeters, so hold the nut down there while you unscrew it. And you see this clamp, just get a flathead and it should pop. Yep. And there that is. These two are going to be pretty stuck together. So I would just get back to the ground, just give it a few taps. See those? They're starting to separate. And there you go. Now we simply do everything backwards, the halfway line. So we're just going to go ahead and stick this Hypercore into the frame. We're going to put this band on, but we're not going to tighten anything because we still have to adjust it with the wastegate. So the wastegate arm doesn't give us any headaches, or check engine lights later, any of that junk. Put your T30 and your nut back on this clamp. Don't tighten anything yet because we still got to move it around just a little. Start with the bottom line, put it in here. Don't tighten the screw, don't put a screw in, just put it in there for now. This long line right here, you put it under the frame, and it goes into this hole first. Okay, then you have this with the plastic hose, because there's 2, and I like how BMW did this so you don't get them confused. One is braided and one isn't. So the one that isn't braided is the one that sits on top of this one here. Your oil line. Once those 2 are lined up, put back your T30 screw, and that last braided line sits right in here. Okay. Wastegate, same way it came out, same way it's going to go back. Keep in mind, you still got to adjust this a little bit. So maybe sometimes you get super lucky and you don't need to adjust anything. So now I'm going to go ahead and back these 4 screws, and then I'm going to tighten that T40 that holds the Hypercore to the frame. You see how that wastegate arm sits over that little circle right here? If yours is sitting not flush or sideways like this, this is when you need to adjust so this can slide down freely. And when that slides down, you can put back this C-clip that you took out from the very beginning. The C-clip, just dress it over and push it in. And that wastegate arm won't come out now. That's it. And now, just tighten those 4 screws for the wastegate. And this beautiful contraption of a turbo is fully ready to go back on the car. If you guys are looking to buy the turbo installation kit, please look no further than Beamer Network. I've worked with these guys plenty of times in the past. 100% have my word for it. They send you everything you'll need to install the turbo. If you guys are part of the G30 group on the Facebook group, just go ahead and send Trevor a message, and he'll go ahead and set you guys up with everything that you'll need to install your turbo. And you can also buy the Hypercore turbo from them as well. When you remove the turbo, the gasket is still going to be on the block, so just go ahead and pop it out of place. There you go. You can tell it's been seen a lot of heat cycles, so better to change it out. Got a little collection of I got like 5 or 6 more over there. If you're like me, you'll have a question of how to install the gasket the very first time you'll do this. Very easy. See these little grooves? These touch the turbo on the other side of the gasket. This is where they're gonna sit on the engine. Start with the rear one. You're gonna put this little hole in the stud. Same goes with the one in the very front. So just go ahead and line it up and then put the teeth on the block. And just push it on the first stud. Push it on the second stud. Now it's gonna sit in place. The easiest way you're gonna get this turbo on the car, you can even do it by yourself, it's that easy. This is where that turbo bracket goes to. If you line up this with the bracket, it'll be so much easier. Let me show you where that bracket is. It's right here. So you just slide it in between, and it should help you Give a lot of support to where you can put the teeth on the block. Okay, you see how the manifold sits right underneath this bracket? So put the teeth in and then lean it towards the engine block. And then when you get to here, oh, there we go. So you just dropped in place. Make sure those teeth are sitting behind that bracket I just showed you. And would you look at that? I don't know how much easier it can get. There you go. Just did it with one hand. Put back this brace on the turbo, and we're gonna put some screws in before we start putting in any lines, just so we know for sure this turbo is not coming off of that block. There you go, this just sits right in place. And 7 brand new 10mm nuts that go on top of that brace to hold the turbo to the block. Now that we know this thing is absolutely not going anywhere, it is nice and tight on there, let's go ahead and reconnect our lines. So once you put the turbo in, they literally just will sit exactly where they're supposed to go. It's kind of amazing. So you see this bottom one? And there you go. So there's the first one. When putting in that last line up here, just be very careful with this braided hose. This is for your evap system, and it also connects to the block. I had a few crack on me during these installs. It's not a big deal. They're like $25 on BMW OEM parts if you want to buy them. You can change it out if you want, but just be very careful. We're good to go on this side. Now with your T30 screws, the ones that hold the cables to the engine block, if they're giving you any kind of resistance, stop. Take it out and start over again. Make sure you align the holes perfectly. These are supposed to go in very gently and very smoothly. If you strip these, you're also going to damage the block of the car. So be very, very careful when reinstalling these screws. And you know they're nice in there, just go ahead and tighten. See how easy that is to go in? There's the first one, and the second one right above it. Same story. When you get it nice and tight, you can go over with the ratchet. No need to torque it to 1,000,000 pounds, just good and tight so it doesn't leak. That's it. And that's it. Beamer Network also sends you the O-rings for these. I didn't show it on camera, I forgot to record, but I also changed out the O-rings for all of these lines. I'm just showing you this as an example. This is what's underneath of the turbo. This is already stuck to the turbo, and then this has to go inside of the block. And that T30, same idea. So I'm gonna put that one in just so you guys know. The last T30 screw holds on this line to this bracket, so you can slide on your coolant line. So when you slide it back on, you have this little hose clip that we took off earlier. Slide it back over to where you can see the indent, right back to where it was. Just like that. And slide back over this heat shield. And don't forget that T30 screw. Right. Put this clip back over the charge pipe until you see those two sticking in. You can leave it like this so you can push it directly on the turbo. Now, this gasket, yep, still good. If this clip is not sitting correctly, take it out, squeeze it together so it's nice and tight, and then push it back in so these two little teeth stick out. Same exact way it's gonna go back in. There you go. Push it in until you hit an audible click. And that charge pipe isn't going anywhere. Line it up with your throttle body. There you go. Back your 3 T30 screws into the throttle body. Connect your pressure sensors back in. Do not forget those. And here's the second one. If by any chance you installed that turbo incorrectly, that charge pipe won't connect properly. See, now it's on there. But if by chance that charge pipe is sitting crooked, won't click on, then you most likely that clamp in the middle that connects the turbo to the core you need to go ahead and loosen that and just turn the turbo in place a little bit just so you can adjust it. But if your wastegate arm is sitting flush against the wastegate, the manifold, then you should be perfectly fine. Since the wastegate can close and open, it should be good in a line for the downpipe and, excuse me, for the charge pipe and the intake pipe to fit on. Now your intake pipe, few options. Option number one, you can get the FTP intake pipe that allows you to get an aftermarket intake. Or what I would recommend, highly recommend, is a dynamic ultra-flow inlet. So this gives you just a little bit more power, a little bit more air. As you can see, the size difference is pretty big. We're not gonna put one on this car for now. We're gonna do some more things later too when we upgrade for another time, but for now we're just gonna put the intake pipe on from FTP. But I highly recommend you get these. It makes your life so much easier. Use the FTP intake pipe like this car. Make sure you remove this seal here. The law tells you to remove it because it'll suck it in right into your engine, and they tell you to remove these seals. Down onto the turbo, and let's listen for that click. There you go. Get that good tug. Not coming out. These cables, feed them over. Click that where it once was. PCV hose. Get back in place. Reconnect your wastegate down here. Click. And your air or PCV inlet hose connection. Click that in as well. There you go. Your evap line. Just go ahead and feed it back into place. That's it. Connect back to your airbox, feed it down to the grommets, and push down to your intake. Guys, if you're gonna do a turbo install, these are great from Spectre, I believe this was, we bought it. Yeah, Spectre. You can go on Amazon and get the large filter. You can remove this box and you can add that large filter, more air, more sound, and turbo noises. So do that. For now, we're just gonna put this because it's working perfectly fine, but if you guys want more noise, then definitely go for the bigger tube. MAF sensor, bring it back in. And now we put in the downpipe. Replace the downpipe gasket. Get these pick tools from Amazon, they're your best friend. Try not to touch this stuff or breathe it in. Brand new one, part number if anybody's wondering. And there you go. Have someone feed the downpipe to you from the bottom, and then you'll connect it with this bracket. Remember those two 13mm screws earlier? Just sit it on the bracket, put those two 13mm screws in, and this downpipe will be back in place. Go ahead and fit. Make sure you get your O2 lines out of the way. And now you can tighten that nut back down, and now tighten that 13mm down. What I do is I put this, please, I don't know how many times I'll have to say it again, please and please. When you're tightening this V-band clamp down, do not tighten that screw in front of where the wastegate arm opens, because this swings downwards. If that arm touches this screw down here, this band, it's gonna throw a check engine light. It's gonna say wastegate issues, wastegate problems, you know the deal. So make sure that this band or this bolt is facing down to the engine block, and just reach around with your tool and tighten it from down here. See? Can you see on camera? So just tighten it from down here. Connect back your O2 sensors. Besides filling the coolant and the oil, we're completely done. All we have to do is reinstall the turbo, or reinstall the turbo. All we have to do is reinstall the exhaust, and then we're gonna go ahead and unplug the fuel rail. So when we go ahead and start the engine, we have to prime the turbo for the oil to spin in there. You don't want to start it dry. So we're going to go ahead and unplug the fuel rail and the fuel pump just to be safe. We're going to go and start the car 4 or 5 times. Just let it go ahead and put pressure into the system. And then we're going to come reconnect these and then start the car so that turbo is for sure primed and there's oil running through the system and the coolant lines. Just finished changing the oil filter and I added oil. So make sure that car has oil before you start it, okay? Coolant. I'm gonna show you what to do when you add coolant to our car so you can flood the system and you don't have any bubbles and your AC actually works after 5 miles. Once you see the coolant level on both tanks is exactly between minimum and maximum, see this coolant hose right here? Squeeze it. You'll hear bubbles, remember? Ready? Well, I only heard on the first pump. So once you don't hear any more bubbles, your system is completely good to go. Let's say you start your car, drive it down the road, 5 minutes, the AC doesn't want to work. It works, but it's just not blowing cold. You come out, open your hood, check the little tank. 99% of the time it's going to be empty because that system is still trying to pull pressure through the system and it's requiring a little bit more coolant on both tanks. So just go ahead and refill as needed. You might want to put back your heat shield. I know Osprey, I believe that's how the company's called, sells the heat shield that's a lot better than this. But for now, OEM baby. And these are the 13mm screws. Exhaust, same way it went down, same way it's gonna go up. Support it with some blocks if you have a lift. If not, the jack will be perfectly fine. Put the muffler on the jack. Your exhaust hangers, face them upwards so that those 13mm nuts will fit in perfectly, and make sure they're aiming forward. And now we're gonna go to the downpipe, lift it up, push it on the downpipe. If you have some help, this would be the perfect time to have somebody come from back here, and as you're putting the pipe onto the downpipe, have them push on both of the tips here so it can help you push on the downpipe to get it nice and tight. And there's the exhaust installed back on the car. Now let's do the starting procedure so we can prime the turbo. Unplug the fuel rail and the high pressure fuel pump. Just so you know, the car for sure won't start. It'll just build pressure, oil pressure for the turbo and coolant as well. If you're working with a tuner, this would be the best time to load the map that the tuner sent over in the email. If not, then just go ahead and do your OTS map off the shelf and just try to start the car and let it build pressure. Here we go. If you have MHD, boot mod, MG flasher, this would be the best time to connect your OBD adapter. Go to your fuel pressure, or excuse me, your oil pressure, and watch it build up before you start the car. So now that we know that that is good to go, plug back in that fuel rail and your fuel pump. And we can start the car. You guys saw how much oil and coolant was touching all over that block when we removed those oil and coolant lines. So when you start the car, there will be smoke. That is completely normal. Don't freak out. It's just burning off all that excess fluid off the block and the turbo manifold itself. Once you start the car, come down and check for any leaks. All those lines, just try to get the light and see as best as possible if there's any leaks coming out of the car. Install that bottom plate for the exhaust underneath the car, and that, my good friends, is how you install a turbo on a B58 G30 or any B58 for that matter. This is the Hypercore turbo from DAW, Dynamic Auto Works. You can contact them and order one through them, or you can go through Beamer Network like I said. I'll post a link down below. This applies, like I said, for any G30 or any B58 engine car, M340s, 240s, 540s, and you get the idea. Alrighty guys, till next time, take it easy. Peace.
Alright, that's not good. Alright. You guys need to open up. Take a step back. Take a step back. He wants to go for it. Alright, we need to make sure we catch that on video. There you go. Alright, you gotta do 3 revs. Ready? Go.